Belarus, the cryptic statement of Alexander Lukashenko. He exults, takes him in his arms, kisses him. Once seated, he has only one desire, and that is to come closer. He walks over to the edge of his chair and begins a speech, waving his thick hands across the table. On November 26, Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko stands opposite Russian Foreign Minister Sergey Lavrov, like a zealous servant facing a master. Seated in the back of his seat, the experienced Lavrov, head of Russian diplomacy for 16 years, listens, his face closed. The meeting promises to be painful for Lukashenko. Because Lavrov is in Minsk to reframe the Belarusian dictator, Moscow is growing impatient. For almost 4 months, protests have continued in the former Soviet Republic of 10 million inhabitants. Russia's staunchest ally so far. An uprising sparked by Lukashenko's victory after the fraudulent presidential election on August 9. However, the Belarusian leader, 66, in power for 26 years, finds only one solution: repression. Fierce with the arrest of 17,000 people, including private opposition candidates from the start of the electoral campaign, Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, 38, the wife of one of the detainees and likely winner of the presidential election, even had to flee to Lithuania. On paper, Moscow shows unwavering support for Lukashenko. Vladimir Putin congratulated him the day after his supposed success and promised him a reinforcement of men if this situation deteriorated. Russian journalists have even invested the Belarusian television studios in order to provide the necessary propaganda. The Kremlin is getting impatient. Behind the scenes, the matter is quite different. The Kremlin is concerned about rising anti-Russian sentiment. According to a recent poll, 60% of the Belarusian population is now hostile to an alliance with Russia, against 49% 2 months earlier. A setback on the steps of the Russian Empire, which would be added to those suffered in Georgia, Ukraine, and quite recently in Moldova, a country decided to turn to the European Union since the election of its president Maya Sandu. So, at the end of November, Lavrov comes with a message. Or rather a warning: it's time to keep promises. The first one, a reform of the constitution. The second, greater integration between the two states. As President Putin has repeatedly said, "We are interested in the implementation of these initiatives," Lavrov said. Lukashenko knows it. On September 14 in Sochi, he spoke for 4 hours with Putin on these two sensitive issues. At the end of his meeting, he mentioned only one thing: the granting of a loan of $1.5 billion by the Russian Big Brother. "I told him sincerely that a friend was in trouble," he laments. Not a word on the rest. Back in Minsk, he does not move anymore. This time, with Lavrov coming, he feels the pressure building. The next day, during a visit to a hospital in Minsk, the former director of Sovkhov's Soviet farm finally gave up ground. Dressed in a white coat, he announced that he could step down as soon as a new constitution was adopted. "I am not preparing a new constitution for myself. With this one, I won't be working alongside you as president anymore, so calm down." Trap. Words in the air? Possible. In August, at the height of the protests, he already mentioned his departure while specifying that he would not undertake anything under the pressure of the street. Except that now the conditions are becoming clearer. With such a declaration, he creates a strong expectation and he tricks himself, explains Artyom Shryman, a political analyst based in Minsk. If he does not do what he says, Moscow will consider it a slap in the face and it will be over for him. There remains one question: the calendar. The Kremlin is ready to give Lukashenko a few more months to draft this constitution, consider a successor and organize new elections, continues Artyom Shryman. Not sure, however, that Lukashenko leaves the landscape. He would seek to establish a status of leader of the nation similar to that of ex-Kazakh President Nursultan Nazarbayev. Rather worrying news. There, the old Kazakh leader is still pulling the strings.